Now here's a very interesting and disturbing graphic here. So there was a major coral bleaching event in 2016 causing huge amounts of stress to the Great Barrier Reef. There was another big event visibly further south in 2017, and now we have another terrible bleaching event this year, which is predominantly lower. Obviously tides and various reasons are why the bleaching has been in different areas in different years, but particularly this year with coronavirus grabbing every single headline, the little reef has been a bit forgotten. In 2016 there was massive press for the bleaching. 2017 was a lot of press, and now 2020 it seems to be slipping underneath our radar. So the reef sure has had a bad run as far as massive stress is concerned. Now I have responded many times to claims that the Great Barrier Reef is dead, and I assure you the Great Barrier Reef is not dead. The Great Barrier Reef is a very diverse and resilient ecosystem, but anything we can do to ease the pressure on the Great Barrier Reef will help as much as possible in years to come. Now, over the course of the Great Barrier Reef's existence, the only thing it's really ever done is evolve, move, change, expand, and contract. And the funny thing is that in the world at the moment, there is the largest biological adjustment that we've seen definitely in the last 100 years. So with the presence of the coronavirus and many industries grinding to a halt, pollution, global warming, gases, and everything has been really positively impacted. The other thing that has had a massive whack is globalization. So I got to talk to a scientist who studied the global impact of apples, Australian apples. And basically what he said is that in order to get cheap apples, the impact that Australia placed on the world in regards to footprint, carbon footprint, fuel use and stuff was catastrophic. So basically Australia would grow all these apples, then we would send them to China. China would eat the best of the apples, then tin the rest of the apples, and then juice all the crap apples. And the funny thing is that a lot of the packing material that they used for making the tins and making the labels and all this stuff was also sourced in Australia. So Australia would provide all of this material and send it all the way to China. China would then process it, use apples in all sorts of things, apples for cooking, apples for tinned apples, apples for apple juice. There's all these different reasons why they use apples, and then sell it all back to us. And the global impact of Australians wanting cheap apples was absolutely phenomenal. How many millions of megalitres of fuel is used, how much wasted freight, wasted time, wasted energy, sending all our apples to China and then getting them to process and package them and then selling them back to us in various forms. And the global impact of our cheap apples was staggering. And now he's basically saying that with this coronavirus and with this nationalisation as opposed to globalisation, even just the fact that we grow our own apples, eat our own apples, tin our own apples, juice our own apples, and all these apples are no longer going overseas to get packed and processed and sold back to us, that the amount of fuel not being used, the amount of wasted resource not being used is unbelievable. He then went and worked out to a dollar value, but mainly to ecological effect. If that's just apples, if you multiply that out amongst all the other fruits, and then you multiply that out against all the other industries that do a similar thing. So in order for us to have cheap apples, and in order for us to have cheap crap, the devastation that we're putting on the environment is absolutely unbelievable. And it's no one's fault except our own. So nationalisation, there's a lot of good to be said about nationalisation. Because if all our products are not going all the way over there and then coming all the way back again, then the global impact of each industry can be minimised so effectively that all of the Paris targets and all these targets, he's saying we can smash them all just by thinking first about ecological impact over cheap apples. So if we start thinking about buying Australian made, buying Australian grown, instead of trying to import everything just because it's cheaper, that the impact that we'll have on the environment for our children is absolutely amazing. Anyway, give us your comments. If you know much about this subject, then put a little note on the bottom of this video. Or have you never thought about the impact that cheap apples have on things like global warming that go and affect things like our Great Barrier Reef? Anyway, I'm very confident that our Great Barrier Reef will evolve, change and survive, but I think there's a lot that we can do to protect it and to protect this earth for our kids.